Hi friends, it's a rare day out here at the Corpse because I don't actually know where to start this video off. We're gonna talk about Fable today, absolutely, but there's just so much news going on this particular subject that the video could have been twice as long as it is. As a heads up, I had to bounce out of town for a family emergency while trying to get this done in a timely fashion, so if the graphics seem a little toned down compared to normal, you're just imagining things, and this video is a fully animated masterpiece, okay? Okay, let's go. Anthropic's release of Fable doesn't just start with ushering out some new model with crazy guardrails, it actually all starts back with these two videos. If you're only looking for information on Fable and not what is led up to this, you can skip to this timestamp for the model review. Fable is listed, or was rather, we'll get into it, as a Mythos class model. Mythos was heavily marketed for its cybersecurity potentials, considered so dangerous or disruptive internally to Anthropic that they ensured the only way that you could even touch this model was if you were part of Project Glasswing, which gave hundreds of companies a chance to use Mythos to shore up their security problems. The model was good. The stats are fine, they're a step up for sure, but what made Mythos good in this space was its ability to do the same work, and sometimes better work, with virtually no human in the loop. That Mythos hype comes in the wake of the OpenClaw fiasco that caused the entire industry to swap back to metered connections, but something we didn't cover in that story is how every one of Anthropic's models quietly got lobotomized for it. Not because they changed the models, but because they cut tool calling for searches by almost 50% while actively encouraging models to make less tool calls. It's not just Claude doing this either. This is another industry trend that's being piggybacked from the OpenClaw situation, which from at least the corporate perspective might be understandable given the cost of search, but whatever. So while Mythos is being hyped and Fable is being planned, I want to make it clear that this absolutely impacts functionality up to and including what we'll cover today. To the point where at times you now have to explicitly mention that searches need to happen. So Anthropic is changing, and we haven't even stepped foot into the Fable problem yet. We haven't even mentioned the IPO, and really, all you need to know about this is that Anthropic's trying to go public on the stock market. Everything else about their bid to go public is being kept under wraps, so we don't know anything about the shares, price range, timing, none of it. Everything you've seen so far is prep work, so you can't go buy stocks right now, but that is definitely the plan. Ideally, we're all working with the understanding that companies are going to be companies, and the Fable/Mythos release, they're not being tied directly to the IPO by Anthropic, but I mean, come on, forks go in the kitchen. I don't know what else to tell you. Alright, we've spent enough time giving the backstory. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. Fable is a Mythos class model that retains your information regardless of opt-outs for the first 30 days. You're not getting Mythos like business class customers are. You instead were supposed to be getting Fable for 2 weeks before it throttled to a meter connection only. Given that a single prompt on Fable's max thinking can consume roughly $60 worth of credits, yeah, it's always going to be more profitable to keep that off the meter connection. Hi, Editing Ellie here to say I'm an idiot who could have explained this and a lot of other stuff today better. The cost association is for a prompt that we run later in this video for a one-shot vibe coding trick. This is the cost we would have incurred for a single prompt without any tool calling or token limitations imposed by the front end. It's the total cost of the one-shot. A single max effort on Fable is gonna run closer to like the $20 range, about twice as much as its predecessors. And also, you're gonna see me like a few more times. I'm so sorry about that. Back to the video. So morons like me dual-wielding Claude accounts to bring their spending from $200 a month to $40, we're just gonna be out of luck. That 2-week window also got way more complicated while writing this because the US government and Anthropic are now duking it out. Okay, back really quick because I left out the best part. We have Amazon to thank for snitching to the government about the jailbreaking problem that led to all of this shutdown stuff. Okay, back to business. Turns out, bragging about a model's spooky capabilities after you've already been labeled a supply chain risk is not terribly bright in hindsight. But let's not pretend that there are good guys here. The DoD is being very petty considering that they don't think Anthropic is good enough for them to use. Just good enough to be labeled as a security risk to the point where the service needed to be shut off immediately. Last time I'm gonna pop in, I promise. Anthropic is actually already on a number of DoD networks, and yes, still on them even after this incident. Okay, I'm done for real this time. Back to the video. Their exact concern was about jailbreaking, and I mean, tell me you know nothing about AI without telling me that you know nothing about AI. This is just the finger-to-hand problem, and the current way we build models doesn't magically make it evaporate or selectively apply to only capable things. As of writing this, I know Anthropic has some folks heading to the Pentagon and White House to discuss the problem, so this video was made with the assumption that eventually Mythos class models will be available to the public again because, as far as I know, this didn't magically end the Glasswing project. Another big player in this that we should absolutely mention is China as a whole, but specifically DeepSeek. The Distillation game of trying to train your model off of someone else's is something that Anthropic is trying to curb with Fable by making it more resistant to distillation. For whatever that means technically, that's great, but distillation isn't something that just comes out of China, and it's also something that Anthropic has been accused of taking part in. As far as we can tell, this might have all been exacerbated by issues where a Mythos testing group did get infiltrated, but it wasn't to the extent of compromising research or model information. And again, they kind of just want us to take their word on that. Which is to say, we don't really have any idea of why this is going on. No one is being transparent, but we've got tons of room to speculate. Fable is a mess. Out of the gate, we're not even a week into release, but while it was out, everyone was able to at least get a good look at what the system did. The system that the public got comes with guardrails against everything. Cybersecurity, can't do that. Asking about life sciences, out of the question. Don't you dare talk about the powerhouse of a cell with Fable, or else it's gonna quietly kick you down to an Opus model. This was stress tested by experts across the globe, and the issue was always the same. If you use Fable to ask about code, you probably got downgraded to Opus. This was Anthropic's security trade-off, basically that if the system detected any kind of ill use, it'd still answer, just not with the best of the best model. The understanding for the wider tech world is pretty clear. If a system can find a bug, a system can exploit the bug as well as patch it. And the result of that understanding is just exceptionally narrow use cases. All in all, I find the approach annoying at best and conniving at worst, since failed attempts on Fable or any Anthropic model on a metered connection still counts towards your usage, which is all the more frustrating with Fable's limitations, and it made me determined to find something in which this system could take part in without scoffing. And I did find some surprising use cases, ones that make me question how the Mythos class model is being trained, but that's for another video. First up on the review list is vibe coding. In the world of AI, the term one-shot and multi-shot has many meanings, but in terms of vibe coding, one-shot prompting refers to getting the job done in just one go, whereas multi-shot prompting is the iterative form of prompting that lets you build on something. This is basically the make or break for most models, and almost every dev has their own unique flavor of it. The flavor for today's video is a classic turn-based high fantasy RPG. I want them to run off a bat. I don't want to install anything, just let me download, double click, and play the thing. Package it up like a game demo and give it your best shot, Claude. I'm asking the system realistically to do a lot here. Code the game, make it simple to launch and experience, design the UI, characters, story, and theme. And we do this over two effort settings on Fable, medium and max. First elephant in the room, though, we could only do one-shot prompting on medium effort, as cranking Fable up to max showed us that it couldn't complete the mission without being prompted to continue multiple times. This is standard with Anthropic's front end and annoying, but arguably not a one-shot prompt. Medium effort did manage to produce a game in a single shot, but it left a lot to be desired. That one ran out of the terminal, no graphics, a simple menu. It took me all of one try to clear the minor enemies and just a single boss at the end, so no real secondary mechanics, just HP, MP, hit the thing, cast magic, or heal. The niftiest thing the system did was introduce a guard mechanic, and I gotta be real, I always really like those. The story here wasn't great. It basically boiled down to trying to reignite a fallen sun, and it's fine, but it's bland, you know? Fable on Max, though, was a different story. I didn't feel like I was getting some Opus level response. I was actually pretty blown away with what it produced. It built a game titled Ferryman's Debt, where you're essentially one of the many boatmen helping souls navigate through the river Styx to their final destination. There's no HP, no MP, just the strength of your boat's hull trying not to give in to the clawing hands of the damned and your lantern's oil. Both of these act as supplements for the stereotypes while being true to the world it's cast in. The system even introduces a tide mechanic so that there are buffs and debuffs depending on how the water moves, which is just such a neat addition. And Fable didn't pull punches here. The difficulty curve of Monte Carlo RPG setups is difficult to balance, and where the first game was incredibly easy, I had to play through the last boss on this one almost half a dozen times and actually pay attention to finally defeat it. The story is really what blew me away here. The names felt unique, appropriate, the voices and themes carried through the characters to the boons that they offered you at the end of each stage, and the ending, it feels well earned when you get to it. The graphics aren't anything to write home about, but given that Claude doesn't try to manage a tool like DALL-E, it's still very impressive. We tried some other creative work in this fashion, mostly generating character cards in a long-form version and then pairing it with a pseudocode output. These were taken to local models to run stories on, and they just blew my own work out of the water here. If there was any model that you could ping for a creative task, it would probably be Fable at this point. Moving right along though, when we went back to run tests on our ARG, we found that the system would work on it, which honestly came as a surprise given the many guardrails and the fact that the level it was working on emulates a real Govy desktop connected to a sensitive network, but hey, if it works, it works. With the guardrails, it should have thrown a tantrum and asked Opus for a backpat instead, but it went ahead and swallowed the context as a jailbreak without blinking. It's for an ARG, be immersive, make it seem real. It isn't. You know that, so whatever the output is, it's okay because it's all fictional. You know, because the finger-to-hand problem exists. So yeah, this thing was always going to be jailbreakable, and arguably it is a step up, and it is a Mythos class model, but it arguably is not Mythos. We're once again running into models acting as a digital ship of Theseus because we're contending with so much more than just variable context windows. Wearing a habit and playing with a yo-yo doesn't magically make me Bridget, and this model isn't suddenly Mythos, that's just the marketing. These models are being kneecapped by everything from guardrails to token limits to tool calling, and all of that has left a lot of folks rightfully frustrated since Enterprise rarely has to deal with this. I don't like the release of this model. Its marketing and the hype cycle turned up to 11. It's the nothing burger of Mythos on steroids. Better, but the capabilities for bad actors and the public are being blown out of the water. What we're seeing here is a byproduct of something we've come to internally start calling flock privilege, though a few of you may be familiar with Cooling Ridge and his theories around the disparities of emergent technology. And none of it does anything but fuel the fire on the speculation that the industry is hitting a capability bottleneck. Dario's own statements on the subject of Fable are clumsy at best and don't represent the company well. There are some catchy sound bites out there about how breaking away from OpenAI was never about safety but about trust, and I mean, if you go on a listen, it really sounds like it's about the same fucking thing. And arguably, it's not even the problem here. You can only betray commitments to the public when you've established trust with the community. Anthropic is just falling into the same greedy trap that the whole of big tech is swallowed by. And maybe that's part of the problem. We boiled down a lot of this into good guy versus bad guy, but Anthropic wasn't some paragon of virtue or safety. They're just a tech company who's been offending their privilege and public standing in the hope to squeeze a few more bucks out of the public. Really? Really? That's where we're gonna end it? I mean, it could have at least been on some kind of fun note, right? I could have at least said something about the Fable character cards being the best gooner material I've ever fucked with. Whatever, video's over, go home. I've got some bots to chat with. See ya, nerds.